Today, we are talking with our friend and fellow YouTuber Christine Gustin about how your personality influences your homeschool style and how to leverage your strengths.
Welcome to Kids Learning for Life. That's Jenny.
That's Stacey.
I'm Christine. And we're three homeschooling moms. We're here to help families teach kids the joy of learning.
Because learning doesn't happen just during school, it happens throughout life.
This is our friend and fellow YouTuber Christine Gustin. We have known her for a very long time. I've known her personally since I was about 4 years old, and now she married my husband's cousin. So now she's stuck with me and Jenny.
So we're going to talk about Christine, about her experience being homeschooled as a kid, her experience homeschooling her own kids, and how she has personally made her personality strengths work to her benefit. So tell our viewers about yourself.
Awesome. So like they said, I've known them forever and they're now stuck with me. So I'm really excited about that. And my personal experience with homeschooling is that I was homeschooled as a kid back in the 90s when it was definitely not mainstream. And, you know, I grew up like thinking I was never going to homeschool my kids, but I found myself homeschooling for more than half of their education. Most recently after COVID crisis schooling, and I decided I'm never going back to public school because I just love it so much and it's so near and dear to my heart. So that's kind of my background. This is now our second full year that we're homeschooling and we love it. I've done charter and now we're doing just like totally creating our own way, and I love it all, so it's been super, super fun.
We are really excited that you're here so that you can let us know your experience on personalities and how that affects your homeschooling.
Yeah, for sure. So I love learning about how our brains work, how we process things, because I think it's super important in life in general. And when you're choosing to homeschool, whether you chose to do it or you have to do it or whatever, it's really important to know kind of how you think, because it's going to really determine every choice that you make in homeschooling. And it's also going to really impact the way that you interact with your kids or your spouse or anybody else that's involved in homeschooling your kids.
Kind of important.
Yes, yes, whether you want to admit it or not, it is. So I think it's really important to be aware of those things. So there's so many different personality tests and types out there. You know, there's the Enneagram, which is really popular. There's Brigg, it's been around forever. Strengths Finders, which is my personal favorite. And I think it's just so important to know whatever test of choice is, to just really kind of own that and acknowledge, like, this is how my brain works. It's not anything bad or good or whatever. It just is. And the sooner you can acknowledge that and then run with it, like, the sooner you're going to be able to maximize, I think, your experience.
Every personality really does have strengths and weaknesses, and it's really good to just be aware of those because they come into play in all aspects of your life.
Yes,
like you
for sure. And especially now with how we have so much, like, on Instagram and Pinterest, like, the comparison game can be really easy to fall into. And I always like to say that comparison is the thief of joy. You know, if I look at Stacey, for example, who has really awesome organizational skills in a way that I don't, you know, if I were to look at how she organizes her day with her kids for homeschooling, for one thing, I'd probably be overwhelmed. I'd probably want to rip my hair out and I would not be good at it. And it doesn't mean that that's not great. That's her strength at work. But it means that there's other things that I might be really good at that I need to tap into.
So I guess that leads us to the question of how do you see your own strength as an asset to your own life?
Yeah, I love that question. So I see my own strengths in the way that I love, like with homeschooling, I love the freedom and flexibility that it gives me. There's days where we can go do school like out in a hammock, like somewhere, or we can do school while we're traveling, or we can do whatever we want. We do have structure, but like having, you know, flow within that is really cool. So like if you're talking about like strengths finders, like some of the strengths that I have are achiever, activator, strategic, input, and belief. Those are my top 5. So if you know about strengths finders, those are my top 5. So I can really leverage those to tap into those things. Like for example, like input's one of my strengths, which means I love like learning and absorbing information. So it's really fun for me, like with curriculum or in anything, to really be absorbing a lot of the things that my kids are also learning. For some people, maybe that's draining. So you might not want to be learning everything along with your kid, right? So I love being able to utilize those strengths. Like if you're talking about Enneagram, I'm an 8 with a 7 wing, which means like I have a lot of energy and I can be really, really intense, which is great, but it can also be overwhelming. So I try to keep that in mind when I'm helping my kids, because they might not want to learn about something for like 7 straight hours, like I would love to do.
So Christine, you mentioned the Enneagram and the Myers-Briggs and the, what was the
Strengths Finder.
The Strengths Finder. Could you give like a brief overview on what each of those are?
Yeah, for sure. So I'm definitely not like certified. And so if you're like the Enneagram police, I know you're out there. Don't come harass me wherever because I'm not an expert. I'm just giving you a disclaimer. But the three, I think those are the three most popular. So Myers-Briggs, that one's been around forever. Like I did that one in college when I first started, whenever that was. And that one gives you like 16 different types. So it's like I'm an ENTJ. So it's like depending on whether you're extroverted,
I don't think we have
introverted.
any of the same. We're like
we are
opposite.
And then whether you're thinking or intuitive, and then there's like perceiving, judging,
or judging.
And then I think I messed it up. Anyways, there's tons of information. That one is actually really easy to figure out which one you are because you can just go take a free Myers-Briggs test, and there's tons of resources available everywhere to be able to kind of learn.
We'll link to some below for you.
Yes, thank you. She's really good at this stuff. Again, remember, details. The other one is Enneagram, which I had not heard of until recently. It is just blown up everywhere. I want to give a disclaimer about the Enneagram because I think it's a beast, okay? Like, it's an amazing tool. There's tons of books. Tests are not really accurate. So if you aren't sure which Enneagram you are, my biggest recommendation would be to go purchase a book on the Enneagram. My personal favorite's The Road Back to You. I don't remember who wrote it, but it's a cool orange book with a road on it. But any of those books you can read and really dig into like who you are. So the Enneagram, the concept behind that, there's 9 different types, so there's actually 3 subtypes within each number, and then you also can have a wing. So it's a lot more than 9. It's like 27 or something that you can actually have. And it really has to do with like showing you the box that you're already in to help you get out of the box. So it has a lot to do with like your childhood wounds, like how you think, how you perceive things, and how other people perceive you. And it's not the type of personality test where like you're gonna move around. Like you have one that you've been, and it's really hard. Like I thought I was a number that I wasn't for a year. So it's great if you want to give the time and energy to dig into it. It's amazing. If you're not that person, move along. That's the only advice I have for that. And then the last one, Strengths Finder, which you do have to pay for. It's my personal favorite because it's just amazing. Like I love this like statistic about it. So because of the way there's 34 different strengths and the order that you have them in, there's a 1 in 33 million chance that there's somebody else with the exact same top 5.
That's what I love about it, is it's so precise.
It is. And it's not like personality. It really has nothing to do with personality. Like if you get really aware of the Strengths Finder, you'll see strengths in other people. Like you'll be like, oh my gosh, like for me with input, like I mentioned, I can identify other people with input because I see them like ferociously like eating information like I do, and I have this huge capacity to learn and process information. So I actually paid for the whole 34. I think it's like $60 to do the whole thing. I highly recommend it because you can actually see the ones in the bottom. I went to a class that was like 8 hours long, which does not make me an expert, but it makes me really excited about it because I've been able to implement it my whole life. But the thing that's really cool is like, so out of the 34, the top like 11 are actually all talents, is what they're called, and you develop them into strengths. The ones in the middle are kind of just whatever, and the ones in the bottom are actually things, they don't call them weaknesses, but things that maybe you're not as good at. So one of the things that's on my very bottom is context, and that's a strength that like means you learn from looking at the past. So for me, that's like, it's not super helpful, you know, for me to do that. So I think it's just helpful to kind of know that. But Strengths Finder is my favorite. You'll start to recognize the strengths or the talents in your kids, which is really cool as a homeschool parent.
That would be cool to do all these on our kids.
Yes, you have the time to like actually tap into that and say, oh my gosh, because the whole idea of Strengths Finder is you're born with these talents, and then as you develop them, they become strengths, which is so awesome. And then it's not about like being in a box.
I really want to do it at some point. I'm just nervous. I don't know why. I feel like Strengths Finder is going to see me in a way that no one else is ever.
It was one of the most freeing things ever, you know, for me. And realizing like there's the book, the Strengths Finder book is amazing. And actually, if you buy the book, this is like a cheap, because I love cheap things. If you find the book on like a used bookstore, in the back of the Strengths Finder 2.0 book, there's actually a code for you to do the test for free. So find it without it ripped open, and you can do it for free.
You heard it here first.
So how would you say that all of that ties into how you can be a better homeschooler?
Yes, okay, so just as with life in general, like how you homeschool as a parent directly relates to who you are as a person and how you think and breathe and do everything. So having an understanding is really important. So one of the ways that I see this as really helpful, and I'm going to just use input as an example again, I think I keep using that, but it's such an easy one, especially when it comes to homeschooling. For me, I have the ability to like absorb information. One of my daughters is not like that at all. Like she's a very hands-on, which I am too, but she's hands-on and really loves to like create and explore a lot more than I do. So for me, my natural inclination based on my default would be, okay, we're going to give her this topic and let her just run wild and dig into this as much as she wants, and I'm going to kind of be there to give her the tools, because that's how I learned as a homeschool kid, and I remember it clearly to this day. But if I do that for her, she's literally going to be like wandering around aimlessly, not doing anything, and probably getting in trouble. So it helps to know that that might be the way that I think, but she needs some more direction, and she also needs to feel like she's like achieving a little bit more. So it helps to kind of be aware of knowing like how I like to learn and how that's very specific to my personality and my strengths, and then catering it more towards them. I think it's also really helpful, like I touched on in the beginning about like the comparison, like knowing like, okay, my best friend, for example, which my best friend is homeschooling now, which is super cool, but her and I have a lot of things that we're really similar in, but very, very different. So for her, something she decides to do might be brilliant, and it might stress me out to be like, oh my gosh. It's really helpful to be aware of that, because the way she does things is not going to be the way that I do them. So I think that's why it's so helpful, especially now, like with COVID and homeschooling and digital learning and all this stuff that's happening. It's so important to know, okay, these are the things that I'm really good at. This is where my joy is. And then these are the things that I don't have to be good at, right? Like we don't have to be, it feels like you have to be good at everything, but understanding your strengths, that gives you permission to be you, and I think that's so important.
Well, speaking of weaknesses, and I don't really like using that word, I know you
Yeah.
don't either, but how do you think your weaknesses have kind of come into play in your homeschool?
Sometimes my kids, especially my oldest one, she's very methodical. She wants the very structured outline. So if I'm not super aware of that, I'm like, oh my gosh, today we're going to learn out here, we're going to do this, or we're going to do school in the afternoon this day or in the morning. And I think that she loves that to a certain extent, but being able to say, okay, within that time frame, here's your super structured outline of what you are expected to do, or what you need to do that day, or this is what you can do. And she loves like doing extra. Like she's the type of kid that, like, I don't know if you have kids like that, but like they love like the and then some. Like they want the gold star, like they want to do the extra. So like being able to say, this is what you need to do today, and then she can do the and then some, it like fills her cup to be able to do that. So I think being aware of that, like understanding that that is a potential like stumbling obstacle for me to know, like, okay, like I need to still give them what they need. And there's so many different things that you can do to kind of like help you in areas that aren't as comfortable.
I am all about using YouTube
Yes.
to answer their questions I don't know. And
don't
it also,
have
it
to.
shows them that you don't know everything.
Yes.
We are not these, I just watched like a webinar, but like these gatekeepers of knowledge. And, you know, we're helping them find the knowledge rather than like we know everything.
Yeah, we're not the all-knowing teacher that knows everything.
Yes,
I like that too.
that.
So Christine, do you have any final thoughts that you want to share with our viewers?
Yeah, so kind of along this whole conversation, I think it's so cool to take this as an opportunity to really start to cultivate this like mindset in life, but particularly in homeschooling, because like I mentioned before with like the social media, whatever, like it can be so easy to look at like, oh my gosh, like this person has this awesome homeschool room. I don't even have a homeschool room, okay? Like I live in 840 square feet by choice. I love it. Like we're super minimalist. It's just how we live now, and it fits us, right? Like it's what brings us joy. So coming to a place where we cultivate knowing the strengths that we have and also acknowledging them in other people, I think is so important. Like it's easy to look at differences and try to justify like why I'm doing something different or why they're doing something different, but like everyone's life's so different. So like taking that grace into all of this, because there's like people that are brand new to this experience, whatever.
Especially right now.
Yes, like understanding like, okay, if they're, you know, if you truly knew everyone's story, like you would understand why they are where they are, and you could absolutely love them. So understanding that, and then also knowing like, just being cognizant of that, you know, like when we're talking, when we're suggesting things, when we're asking questions, I think it's so important, because it can so easily come across as like arrogance, or you can feel like less than like, oh my gosh, like she has the whole alphabet in Greek on her wall in her homeschool room, and I don't even have it on my wall. You know, like those little silly things, but just knowing that we all struggle with it. Like we all struggle with the, oh my gosh, am I doing enough?
You see it in the Facebook groups, you see it on Pinterest,
everywhere.
Instagram. Like those are great things to look at, but that is not what, I mean, you know, 99.9% of people don't have that. They have a variation.
Exactly. And just knowing that, like I'm so glad you mentioned that, like knowing that, and then knowing like your strengths, and then also being brave enough to point them out in other people. I know it can kind of be weird, especially like, I don't know what it is, like some women like in the United States get really weird about like complimenting other women, and I don't know why that's a thing, so we're just not going to do it anymore.
Let's all compliment each other.
Yes, we should.
No, right now.
Okay.
Jenny, I love your shirt and how it looks on you. See, you can't even receive the compliment. What
Oh my gosh.
That just was not what I was expecting.
I wasn't
Okay.
like prepared for
You
this.
compliment each of us.
Okay, one of the things that I love about Stacey is that she makes like being organized like flawless. Like she makes it fun.
Thank you.
Like, and her kids aren't sitting there like, oh my gosh. I mean, there's days, right? Like all kids roll their eyes some days. Like if they don't, then you're some saint.
Please
and I
let
need
us
to be
know
your
in the
friend.
comments below how you did that.
But you know, like she makes it fun, right? Because it's a strength of hers to like be like, okay, like this is what we're gonna do today. And it's gonna be awesome. And like, you know, and I love that. And then I love with Jenny how much she cultivates like, I don't know what word, like art, like in her kids, like just like art, like music and singing, like all those different things. Like her kids just have, like they exude this like, I don't know, like art. Like they admire things in a certain way because of how she cultivates it. And I think that's so cool because if you look at those two strengths, like they're not even close.
You guys might think we're
They're
similar,
related.
but we're not.
They're not. I can tell you right now. Like they're not. They might have married twins, but they're not that similar, okay?
We'll compliment her just a bit. First, we want to compliment you, okay? Whatever you're doing, if you have found this video, it means you're probably on YouTube searching and you're looking for ways to homeschool and you're looking for different methods. You are doing exactly what you should. You're researching, you're looking up new ways, you're trying to come up with new ideas, and you are already rocking this homeschool.
Yeah, that's sometimes the hardest step. It's just
Right.
like make a decision, commit to it, get information. So I guess now we can compliment Christine. This is our new segment called Compliment Christine. Okay, I'm just gonna give an off the wall one. I think Christine, you are really funny. I don't know if this is something that people would just like come up with off the top of their head for Christine. It's not like Christine's like, oh, I'm a funny person. She'd never be voted class clown. But I think that you just have such a unique, funny sense of humor.
They didn't even see the outtakes.
Yeah.
They would know.
I'll leave some of them in. No, it's fine. Okay, what about you?
Okay,
What do
Christine.
you love about our friend Christine?
I
Gustin?
love her professionalism.
I love it.
No, but it really is like even in, you know, this setting, sitting down here, you know, she's very calm and collected and can, you know, just answer these questions that we have for her and just present it in such a like professional manner.
Thank you, guys.
Yes, that's great. So please, we encourage you to check out Christine Gustin's YouTube channel. She does lifestyle videos. She even has like a homeschooling playlist, so we'll link to that below. Do you have any more questions for Christine about personality and homeschool? Let us know in the comments below.
And if you like this video, be sure to like and subscribe to get more homeschool content just like this. See you next time!
All right.